Well, hello there, and thank you for joining us for the first ever episode of the Dollarhide Doctrine, where we investigate together what it means to be a domestic church. I'm here with my wife, Holly. My name is Ben, and we're very excited to have you with us.
Yeah, hi. Good to be here. Feeling a little awkward, but we're going to get past it.
So please excuse us as we figure out how to do this, but we're very excited to be on this journey with all of you. We appreciate everybody that's taken their time to listen to us. We're very excited, like I said, to be on this journey with all of you.
Yeah, hopefully somebody's listening.
Yeah. So we wanted to start by sharing just a little bit about us. So I wanted to have my wife, Holly, first introduce herself, because this is kind of her brainchild.
Why you keep doing that? Okay, I'm Holly. I live here with my husband, Ben, and our two babies, Noah and Jonah. What about me? What do you want to know? I'm learning more and more how to bake, so that's fun. Not something I grew up knowing. I really like decorating, even though our house doesn't look like it right now. Love plants, even though I also killed a lot of those. So all my hobbies really are.
For the record, we moved here to Virginia. So we just moved about 7 months ago. Well, actually, it's been about 9 months, with a carload of houseplants. We are now down to 3.
This is the first time, though, that I've really let go and, focused on the babies instead of the plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've decided that the houseplants are now on hospice care. They're slowly dying, and we will wish them well, and we will reuse their pots once they are finally gone.
Yes, trying to be sustainable.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about me. My name is Ben. I am a funeral director by day and a dad all the time. So I love being a husband and a father, and I love sharing what that means with other people, especially those that are discerning their vocation to married life. I love to cook. I don't get a chance to do it too often anymore, at least. I abhor manual labor, which I think is one of my faults.
Abhor?
Yeah.
Okay, just check.
Abhor.
Okay.
My ideal day is playing video games and doing absolutely nothing. But of course, with children, I don't think I have touched a video game now in probably 6-7 months.
Yeah, you've stepped away.
Yes.
We need to work on our hobbies.
Yes. Yeah. A little less on doing the yard work and a little bit more on doing video games. You all heard it, folks. She wants me to play more video games. All right, so let's dive into a little bit about why we're doing this, why we feel that we are blessed to be in this position to lead you all in this journey. Like I said, this is my wife, Holly's brainchild, so again, I want to turn the mic over to her.
See, I don't remember it being exactly my brainchild.
I think it was.
Yeah, so I guess in what we've experienced thus far in our young marriage and family life, so we got married in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, which already kicked it off to an interesting start to our marriage, because life was very different getting married and after than it had been while we were dating and before.
Right, we were very social people.
Right.
And then we went from being super social, having a lot of friends, constantly talking to people, to not really talking to anybody.
Right, but also just like the inaccessibility of all the things that kind of we enjoyed together and that made our faith life. We found in more recent years that a lot of our spirituality is rooted in community. And so during the pandemic, a lot of church things and sacrament opportunities were really closed off and shut down. And it didn't really lend itself to helping us make an effort to seek out those things, maybe like we would have before. So anyway, all those things kind of started our marriage in this place of like isolation and maybe a little bit of spiritual desolation, especially because we have very different spiritual
Mm-hmm.
experiences ourselves, and kind of preferences of how we pray and how we share the faith with each other and with other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very touchy-feely. Like, share your what's on your heart with me. Let's pray together. I will hold your hand or give you hugs. Like,
And I am not that way. So,
yeah.
at least when it comes to the prayer life, like I'm very like regimented. So a little bit about our background, I guess that would be helpful to kind of establish what that foundation is for each of us. So both of us have at least some professional experience in what it means to be, I guess you can call it like a professional Catholic, quote unquote, where I was in seminary formation for quite a few years, and you were, you have your degree in pastoral administration and worked in a ministry role in Indianapolis for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And the experiences of prayer that we had that kind of formed us were completely different. So now we're here in our married life trying to figure out how those two items come together, how those two experiences come together, and how we pray with one another, but then also how we build the domestic church not only amongst the two of us, but now that we have children, how do we build that with them? And then how do we witness then to other people?
Right. So I think based on those experiences of realizing that we kind of have some friction between sharing our spiritual life together, came this kind of realization as well that we don't really know how to live out this marriage vow and this call to get one another to heaven and to perfect one another the way that God would have us do. Even though we absolutely know that that's what we agreed to do in marriage and that's what we set our vows to do. But we've realized more and more that, like, we don't know how to do that. And I don't know many other people who have at least voiced how to do that well, outside of a few married saints maybe that I know of. Mm-hmm. But we've just realized, especially in our family life too, that, like, there's this need, I think, to redefine what is the domestic church and to figure out practical ways to live that, because in my mind, my goal is like sainthood as spouses and as a family. And I would love to see, like, this be the generation or the next few generations of, like, canonized families. Like, that would be so amazing. Not to say that we have the authority to teach others what to do in this regard, because we're figuring it out. We have no idea ourselves. And not to say that we are holy or any better than anybody else, because we are absolutely not. We are very ordinary and actually very much feel like we're in the mud right now. Like, we're in the thick of babies and exhaustion and sleep training and work hours and stay-at-home chaos, and, tight finances and all the things all at once. And we live far away from family. So, like, we're in the thick of life, which I think helps us, walk with everybody else who's kind of in the thick of it too.
Right, and I think that brings up a good point. All the other Catholic couples that we know of in podcasts and YouTube videos and people that are in formal ministry, right? They themselves might not see themselves as having it all figured out, but for those of us that are still actually trying to figure it out, that they seem a lot more well put together than we feel.
Right. We're like, how do we get there?
Right. Yeah. So we want to be able to be vulnerable with all of you that are listening and joining us on this journey in order to kind of show our thought process of how we get there, because we have this goal in mind, this as Vatican II says, the universal call to holiness. So how do we achieve that together as not only as spouses, as individuals, but then as a family unit, as you said.
And also just in the crazy world that we're living in, which I think makes it tenfold harder to do this than maybe in past generations, because more and more it seems there's evil at work and evil winning not to say there's not great good things happening, but I think, the odds are against us. So how do we build good armor to battle this in life?
Right. So all good things. We're super excited to be here with all of you, and we can't wait to journey through the mud with all of you.
Yeah, please let us know if you feel like, if anyone's listening, please leave us a comment or a like or something about where you're at in life with your family, your marriage, your relationships. Does this apply to you? What do you want to hear about regarding figuring out what the domestic church is? What are things that you're struggling with in life right now? Also, how can we pray for you? Because we absolutely could use all the prayers we can get.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely we just want to walk with everybody and share this craziness with you so that maybe we can all get somewhere good together.
Yeah. And I think that one of the aspects of the mud, I'm looking here at our makeshift notes that we've made to kind of go off for this first podcast, and everything has to do with Easter. And one of the things that we've really struggled with together is discipline enough to actually do this. So we want to be held accountable to you all to do this once a week, upload one episode a week where we share kind of what's going on, because otherwise, like, our notes are staring us in the face.
Yeah, we'll be months behind.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Of course, we had different things going on. It's all part of the mud. Things come up. We got sick. The kids got sick. You got sick. Everybody got sick. And then we had visitors, and things just did not go as planned. So here we are now, the week after Pentecost, having finally done this.
But hey, we're here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know, again, we don't know where we're going with this or what we're doing, but we're going to try to figure it out together.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just to start, what was your vision of domestic church, or what our marriage should be before we got married versus now?
Sure. Yeah, I had a good Catholic role model, not necessarily growing up, but later on in seminary formation, I had these beautiful witnesses of family life from various different families that I was privileged really to interact with throughout formation. That they got together, they had all these beautiful kids, they sat down after dinner and they all prayed together, or they all did sports together after dinner, and then they prayed together. And I thought, that's such a beautiful image, such a powerful witness to the beauty of married life. And I just kind of assumed that all devout Catholic families were like that. And come to find out that it's not that way, that it doesn't come that naturally to most families. So that was kind of the ideal situation in my mind, that it was a family that prayed together, that really sought each other's holiness, and I think that that's a good role model. It's just that the groundwork, the foundation, has not been laid well, I think, for individuals entering the married life at the moment. And that's nothing against the people that formed us, to prepared us for marriage, because I think that they did an awesome job. That's a shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Smith that did a really awesome job, especially during COVID, having to do everything over Zoom and the little hiccups that come with that.
Right.
But talk about perfect, wonderful, awesome Catholic families.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Great role models. But you're talking about kind of flawed or misdirected formation as far as a few generations, right? In the Catholic Church, we've kind of lost sight of how to teach people how to be Catholic and how to have a Catholic soul and what that means in your day-to-day life. So yeah, I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. What about you? Because you worked more closely, I think, with families than I did. So what kind of was your vision of the domestic church going into the sacrament of matrimony?
I think I always knew, like, the goal of marriage is sainthood. That's kind of the vision that I had, like, and I think I think I wrote to you about it while we were dating, like, I want whoever I marry to be a saint with me, and to work with each other to get to that point of virtue. So I think that's always been the foundation of what our relationship was, and, like, at least where I saw it going for marriage. But I think what I struggle with a lot is, like, yeah, that's our goal, and I know that we're good people at heart, and, like, we want what's best for each other, and we want each other's good, and we're not afraid to, like, push each other a little bit to get there. But we also, like we said earlier, kind of spiritually haven't figured out how to, I don't know, meet in the middle. We're working on it, and we've gotten better as far as, like, praying together and, like, figuring out what liturgy we feel like, we're called to be at as a family. But I think that we're still lacking just, like, I guess, open communication about many things, including spirituality, because, I mean, the domestic church life also includes all that other aspects of life, right? Like our money and our feelings and our hobbies and our bad days and our good days, like all the things
Right.
that I think maybe just our communication, like, I feel like we weren't taught, and we didn't grow up watching our parents also, like, they weren't great at showing us how to communicate that way. And again, not at any fault of theirs, but, like, that's because they didn't have that modeled either.
Right. They didn't have that formation.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so I think that now, too, just the way that we look at our kids and we're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to raise them as a good Catholic? Because I have no idea. Outside of, the few things we did growing up as Catholics, I don't think is enough to, like, feel like we've done a good job.
Right. And I think that that's where it really hit home for me. It was one thing to have this struggle between the two of us, like trying to figure out how our spiritualities meet, but then how to pass on the faith to these children. When Noah, our oldest, was born, that, like, hit me like a brick. I was like, oh my gosh, I have zero idea what I'm doing. I have no idea, one, how to be a dad, but then two, how to be a Catholic dad. So how do I model the faith? How do I model Christ to him and show him that the husband is to be Christ to the wife as well? So how do we come to this knowledge if that hasn't been handed down to us? Mm-hmm. And how are we expected to hand down the faith in raising and rearing children if we have not been given the faith?
Right. And this is all, again, after some pretty heavy formation for both of us. You had how many years in seminary formation?
It was so I took a leave of absence in the middle of it where I was gone for about 2 years. But if you include those 2 years in the timeline, so I was in seminary formation from 2012, took a leave of absence in I want to say it was 2014, the beginning of 2014, which lasted until 2017. And then I finally left formation in 2019. 2018.
4 or 5 years.
No, it was 2019. It was 2019.
But 4 or 5 years of seminary formation.
Right.
You went to Catholic high school.
Mm-hmm. Jesuit high school, but
yeah. You have had, obviously, like, experience with pastoral care,
mm-hmm.
As far as your chaplaincy program went, and funeral directing, like, all these things with families. I've had a degree in pastoral leadership, but also, like, extensive volunteering work with college ministries, retreats, mission trips, and then parish ministry as well for all ages. So despite having all this training and like knowledge, right, we feel so unequipped. So it just makes me think like how many couples and families are out there that are Catholic that, you know, don't have any of that, just have like growing up Catholic or joining the faith on their own accord. Like, what are they doing as the domestic church? What do they feel is the vision of marriage and family life? How are they living that out? Do they feel overwhelmed? Because we definitely do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that we as a church are getting there. We've really become very robust in pastoral theory and sacramental theory, right? As far as the vocation sacraments, the sacraments of vocation go. I think that we've been very heavy on the sacrament of holy orders, and that's kind of redefined itself. It's really had to redefine itself, rediscover itself here in the past few years. But we've, like I said, come a far way as far as explaining the theory behind the sacrament of matrimony. But I think where we're lacking is the practical application of what that means in our daily life. And that's what we hope to explore with each and every one of you that are joining us on this journey.
Right, and hope to find out for ourselves
Right.
as we share. But I think, too, like, I could get going if we start talking about, like, catechetics and just the need to revitalize that and totally redesign the way that the Catholic Church is teaching the faith, because obviously that's what we're talking about. But I think, too, as, like, a mother now, I would go back to where I was in pastoral ministry and totally redo the way that I was doing ministry, because I think there's also a severe lack of parishes doing their work to support family life, where there's supposed to be a base of support for us to live well at home with our families, but instead it's kind of like you have to go to church and participate in these activities to participate in the faith, but that's not where our faith is really happening. You know, it's at home in our day to day. So I don't know. I could go on and on about catechetical things, but I'm sure we will get there eventually.
Right. Yeah, and we understand that, again, because we're the quote unquote professional Catholics, right? That like we get that the Holy Mass is the source and summit of our faith. We get that. And we understand that. We love it. We love the Holy Mass. But we find that when we leave Mass, there's a lacking there. And perhaps that's on our part. And we hope to discover that. And how we can draw out the mysteries that we receive at the Holy Mass.
Right. But
throughout the week.
That's also definitely like our starting point, right, or like jumping point as the domestic church, like, is the sacraments and the liturgy, like, that's our foundation. And especially in our experience too, like, when we have no idea what we're doing with each other spiritually and in our faith life, we totally know that we're gonna for sure go to Mass on Sunday, and we're gonna experience that sacrament together, and that is not negotiable. So I think that's a good place to start if you're definitely feeling lost in the faith journey with your spouse or your family. Like, you have to be grounded in the sacraments, otherwise it's all for nothing.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we definitely experienced and struggled with for a short time there, because, you know, as everybody knows, if you are a practicing Catholic, the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, at least publicly, was suspended, and the lay faithful were not able to adequately participate. We could still watch it online, or we could watch it on TV, but we could not bring ourselves physically to be present at that sacrifice. And I think that did a lot of harm to that, and I know that we have used that as an excuse, particularly during the time when it was being offered publicly again, but that obligation still wasn't there. And so we've used that as an excuse. So this could be even a call to other Catholics that, you know, are looking to foster this domestic church, kind of figuring out why they feel lost, maybe the best place to start, like you said, that springboard moment for them might be to fit that back into their daily routine.
Right, and I'm sure, at least with the older generations, that's still the case after COVID. Like, it's become so much more accessible to not go to Mass because there's kind of a culture now of like, well, if you're not feeling great, or if you don't want to get sick, or if you're vulnerable, don't go. Don't show up. Just watch from home. Now a lot of churches say the prayer to receive
the spiritual communion.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's also, like you said, kind of, I think the church missed the mark during COVID, and we could have done a lot better with ministering to the people during such a hard time, but also maintaining a foundation for the faith life, not just with Mass, but also adoration and reconciliation were huge ones that like totally went missing for the most part during that time when they were like needed the most. And I would say that we need them right now too in our own marriage and family life. And that's something that we have not prioritized to get back into. Even though like when we were dating, we went to daily Mass on most of our dates, or we went to a holy hour or something. And obviously like it's totally different when you have little kids, and we don't live near church in the South. It's not nearly as accessible as it was when we were up north to get to a Catholic church and their sacraments. But
yeah, for a little bit of background on that for all of you, so we moved to Virginia, like I said earlier. So we're in the middle of the Bible Belt, right? And we knew that coming in.
But we didn't really know
how bad it was
as far as like
being able to
being
access
Catholic here.
Right. Yeah. So there are 2 Catholic parishes that are within half an hour of us, and both of them do not have a liturgy that I feel comfortable raising my children in, and they're both parishes that we don't feel that we can have, that we would be able to contribute anything to anyway. So we find ourselves driving an hour to Mass every weekend, whether that be up north to Lynchburg or down south all the way to Greensboro. So trying to figure out how we can best pass on the faith to our kids in the middle of the Bible Belt.
Yes, it's just made it hard to re-access those sacraments that we know we need and would benefit from greatly in our spiritual life and in our marriage.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I actually had forgotten. When we were dating, of course, I clearly remember going to young adult nights with you because you were the one sponsoring or putting on the young adult night anyway. But then I remember finally having back up a little bit. So when I left seminary, there was a lot of hurt there. There was a lot of I felt very unworthy to be at the Mass, and my spiritual life really took a dive after leaving the seminary formation. And I think that is an experience that I've seen in seminaries that have left formation kind of across the board. That once they leave seminary formation, there's this kind of dive spiritually. So right before COVID, literally 2 or 3 weeks before everything got shut down, I had finally gotten to the point where I was going to daily Mass every day. I had found a parish closer to where I lived in Indianapolis, and I was going there every day after work. They had an evening low Mass, and I was going every day, and I finally felt that fire of faith finally spark again. Because like you said, when we were dating, we would go to daily Mass together, and we would go to holy hours together. We were at a very high point spiritually, but individually, you were still at that high point, but I was more at a low point.
Right.
So finding, so right when I had started developing those good habits again, it was all stripped away, just like it was for everybody else. So coming from that spiritual high that I was finally getting again to extreme spiritual desolation. I remember that particular Lent, everybody said it was the most lentiest Lent that they ever experienced.
Everything's gone.
Right. So like we couldn't do anything. And we went from finally establishing these routines with one another as a dating couple to not having that available to us. And I think that was the experience for most people.
Right. And like you said, kind of like sinking into that, like, not only were we upset that was gone, but we were also like, well, it's not available to anybody, so it's okay that we're not participating. Like, I don't know, it was like a get out of jail free card, like, to not do anything with our sacraments and our faith life, even though obviously that's not what we were called to do, but that's kind of how it fell for us, and that's kind of what we're climbing out of now. Spiritually. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have some interesting perspectives to share because of our unique background, but hopefully others can relate. And we have friends who also are couples out of seminary life and other ministry backgrounds as well, that kind of share struggles connecting spiritually, and also people that come from different faith backgrounds in their marriage. So I think that'll be interesting too, to learn how they in particular view the domestic church when maybe their spouse doesn't share that view with them. So how they're living that in their own marriage too.
Yeah. So like I said, we are very excited about this journey that we're about to take with all of you. And we hope that if you've enjoyed this little tiny introduction, the super awkward introduction that we've done with you.
We've been all over the place.
That you will come back next week when we have a bit more of a succinct message.
Yeah.
Where we will actually present to you something going on.
I tried to have us just for a couple minutes before starting to be like, hey, what are we going to talk about? And you were like, no, we're just talking. Let's just go. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And it turned out okay, I think. We'll see.
Yeah, let us know if anybody listened.
Yeah. But we are, like I said, we're super excited. We feel blessed that you took the time out of your day to listen to us. And we hope that you will come back next week to join us as we continue to figure out what it means to build the domestic church at home.
Yeah, and just some plugs. One of my favorite podcasts that's kind of helped us to get here too is listening to the Pre-Cana with the Pope podcast. I will totally plug them even though they don't know I'm doing that, but definitely go listen to them, whether you're in a married relationship, if you're not, if you're dating, if you're engaged, if you've been married for 50 years or 5. Like, I think they have a lot to offer, similarly to kind of what we're talking about, but especially with regards to the marriage relationship. And also a little shameless plug, I have a very teeny tiny business that I'm trying to start that is not anything crazy, but if you want to check it out at diaryofadollarhide.com, I just have a little blog and a little shop to try to help support us and, you know, pay for a couple more things in life as things get more expensive, but just kind of trying to, again, talk about things in home life and raising kids and being a good wife, and how our faith affects that.
So please join us next week as we come together again to figure out what it means to rebuild the domestic church. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.